Hi, welcome to the Mohua Show. My name is Mohua Chinappa and I am an author, entrepreneur, and ex-housewife. This podcast is about everything from business to technology to arts to lifestyle, but done and spoken ईमानदारी से. Hi, in today's episode, we have with us Rubi Chakravarti. She's a stand-up comedian in India. She was also a full-time mother and wife till she turned 40. We need to figure out why she says that. And then decided to become an actor and a comedian. Welcome, Ruby, on today's episode.
Hi, nice meeting with you. I really didn't think that little lunch we had together, where there was so much brainless conversation going on, that we'd actually connect and have something really important to say to each other. But they say, no, sometimes the universe conspires that two like minded people come together. So here we are.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So let's just start, with your early years as a housewife and what made you quit becoming a full-time, homemaker, or who was Ruby Chakravarti before this?
Well, Ruby Chakravarti is always a maverick. I don't think I had space to be anything but a maverick. I was brought up to be a maverick because my parents came from cross cultural backgrounds, and I was the youngest in the brat pack. As I already explained to you, it was a toss between getting a puppy and having me. So then they decided to have me. As my mother said, it was a toss between ruining the carpet and ruining our lives, darling. You won. So, no, but jokes apart, I think we addressed a lot of stuff with humor. Both my parents were excommunicated from their respective, very, very strong and lineage of, people who belong to certain religious backgrounds. So we were brought up without uncles, aunts. So that's them. Academia was very encouraged in my household. It was all input equals to output. My father was a scientist admi, so we were never allowed to say, "Oh, ye kismat ka khel hai," and you know, you didn't. So and we didn't follow any religion. We believed in God, but whichever, we had very strong moral system at home, and that's what we followed. And when I look at things now, I'm so grateful for it. I really had parents who were there much before our time. Now, coming back to me, I didn't ever have the space to say I only want to be a housewife. I only want to be this. So when I was about 2 and 3 years old, when they'd ask me, various friends of my parents or my mother would ask, she said, when you grow up, what do you want to badi ho ke kya banegi? So I used to say, I want to be a mummy. So they said, oh, so sweet and all that. By the time I was 5, I started getting a few slaps on my head. Mummy, stupid. So then I started saying things like, I want to be an astrophysicist, an astronaut, all the things I thought they wanted to hear. So, yeah, but I think my secret wish was always to be a mummy. Well, then I became a mummy. So, my husband and I met when we were very young. And of course, I thank my parents because they sort of insisted we finish our education and do a further education, threatening to call the cops and all, because we were just planning to run into the sunset together. So, yeah, that was it. So, I trained to be a lawyer because I had a big mouth. I had no head for numbers. I had no, brains for science. Itna bolti hai, you talk so much. Become a lawyer. And a bloody one, good one at that. So I trained to be a criminal lawyer, and I did work with a very large criminal law firm. So I was never a traditional housewife, but I did definitely change streams. I changed streams, if that's what you're asking.
So today's podcast is mainly about sentence that stayed back from our lunch, among so many other women, and a statement that you made that I saw there was vulnerability in your eyes, and you traced back your life as your son coming out to be queer, and how people blamed you for him choosing his own sexual orientation.
Well, something, I think children are children, I mean, people tend to blame, oh, you don't say, oh, he was dark, so he became a murderer. He was fair, so therefore he was dumb. So their sexual orientation does not have any say on who they are as people. So after some research, I found out that their sexual orientation is determined within 3 weeks of their conception, that what is it they're going to like or prone to like. Now, of course, all this is so hush hush, and this happened, I think, because of 200 years of Victorian rule and everything being. But otherwise, India, We were very open. We had a third community. We had gender fluidity, as they call now. We had all these things, you see. My son is an orangutan of a boy. He was always an orangutan of a boy. Even now, he's 6 feet 3 inches tall with a mop of curly and the biggest, brownest eyes you can ever see in your life. But I knew by the time he was 5, that he was different. So, therefore, when parents say that they don't know, I wonder how. So, and I did give him the space because I know that he would dance vigorously to choli, ke piche kya hai and all. And the moment I came, he turned his my dupatta into a turban, and I told him, "You don't have to ever have to do that with me. You know, I love you, I adore you, and you can you can do whatever you want with that dupatta. You know, don't lie or don't hide behind anything because you feel you have to. Children don't listen, they learn, by example. But I got married very young also. And then, I was also, in a sense, when Adu was born, I would ask and I would see that he was different because he loved wearing my dupatta. He'd just have a t shirt on. He'd be as naked as the day he was born down below. One dupatta and my heel shoes and tappa, 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 with all types of unsavory things hanging around the place. He would be all over the place. And I just let him be. So I remember at that time, a lot of people who I respected said, you're so dominating, you sort of dominate everything. You should learn to be little, you know, Imi, that's my husband. He doesn't ever say anything, send him out with Imi. Let him fly kites, let him play football, show him the manly things, mard ko dard nahi hota wala things. And at 26, I didn't believe them. Of course, I said, go fly a kite. But I was vulnerable because I knew gay children get beat up in bars. They are ostracized. There are some people whose way of being, whose very life is threatened by these children. When they see gay children, they get angry. They feel it's an anomaly. They feel it's a disease. I don't know what they feel. Or they're scared of their own vulnerability. Now, you tell me something. Why in Bangkok and in Thailand are more than 50% gay and non gay people? Because they're allowed to be gay. Maybe this is nature's own way of stemming the population, putting different type of input. Nature does this. So, because we have to adhere to so many stupid rules that we made, we kill our children, we murder them.
So, as a mother, when you were so young, how did you put your emotions together?
I was very strong. I led by example. I celebrated him, and there's nothing not to celebrate. He he did all his education, including from Warwick, all on a scholarship for heaven's sake. He's the most popular, he's beloved, he's wonderful, he's so sensitive and he's so talented. He's got a great sense of humor, he's got loads of friends. Why wouldn't I love him? I'm so lucky to have him. He chose me. You know what Khalil Gibran says? Your children come through you, but they don't belong to you. He chose me. They chose me. My son and daughter chose me. And boy, am I lucky because I manifested at 3. I want to be a mummy. So I got to be the best mom. But I had trouble in his school. So I knew that though I lived next to a huge, very popular boys' school, I couldn't send him only to a boys' school. Though he had not shown any, but I just knew. I don't know how, it's a mother's instinct. I sent him to a smaller school. And plus, he was he got a very high IQ. So, children like this got very high IQ. Children like this are very sensitive. Children like this are poets. What is like this? It's not an anomaly. He's a child with a high IQ. That's it. He happens to be gay. He could be not gay. So yeah, so I knew that I could send if I sent him to a school with a smaller number of children, he'd be safer. He'd have more attention for his brain. I had to just find out ways and means of keeping him safe, of telling him that boys can be raped too. I belong to a prestigious club, and I know that as an 8-year-old, when he used to mince his way to get me ice cream and him an ice cream, there used to be some old geezers, whose eyes used to follow like that. And I used to think, oh my God, how can I keep him safe? As much as I thought for my daughter, how can I keep him safe? Because, gay children bring out a huge amount of violence in non-gay people or people who pretend to be straight or people, I don't know, it brings out, like they call it anti-national, they call it anti-religion, they call it anti, it's like kill you, murder you, finish you, dabao you.
How much dabaud were you in your emotions, Ruby, when you look back? Remember any incident that you can share? Because it'll really help a lot of our listeners. And we have a large number of listeners who are youngsters who may not have the courage to come out, mothers who may not have the courage to come out in smaller towns. And your conversation today is going to give them a lot of strength.
Well, in school, for one, I know in school, he was the head of the debating team. He was, everything was so good. And then when he walked past, I remember him sitting in the bathroom and saying, Mom, what rises with pansy? What rhymes with it? Tell me. Anzi, Hansy, Tansy. So I said, why, beta? Saying, no, what rhymes with pansy? So then I said, why? Tell me why. He said, a teacher called me. He's such a pansy and looked at me with disgust. So I feel that maybe she said something else and I misunderstood. I said, no, she said pansy. I said, you know what? You go to your principal and talk to him. I'm paying shitloads of fees. You go and you talk to him and say, this is what happened. And, he had not even decided what he was going to be. He was all of 8 or 10 years old. So of course, the principal didn't do anything. And when was this alleged remark made and all that? So I just wound my way to school. I said, I told him to come to you because I wanted him to stand up for himself. And if you're going to bring adults into this equation and going to bring that teacher here and say, is this the teacher you allegedly said these things to you? I said, he's going to say no. I said, you can't do this. I said, this is what you're going to do. I said, you have used my son to further your school in every respect. He's won every debate, everything. I said, this is the place where he needs support. I stood there and fought with him for, everybody said, oh, he will be given a TC. I called all his teachers down. I said, this is the time you need to speak for him. Of course, the principal left the school and so did the offending teacher. But the thing is, everybody says, don't make a noise, Ruby. Don't talk, Ruby. Don't do that. Like, please let it go. I just feel don't let it go because, the whole world is there to bash up your kids. You're the only haven they have. I'm not saying support them in the wrong things, but you have to stand up for them. You have to stand up for your fluid gender child or whatever other new wave thing. You have to stand up for your child. Nobody else is going to. And you have to make this normal, as the way they call it. Like all right handed people are normal, all people who are heterosexual. No, left handed people, little. 100 years ago, you'd be beaten black and blue if you wrote with your left hand or ate with your left hand, right?
It's considered the impure hand.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about your relationship with your husband, because obviously at many public gatherings you must have been constantly told that you speak your mind, you are definitely not the quintessential.
Indian woman.
Yes, and you're tall and you do have an opinion and you've got a great sense of humor, which requires intelligence. Were there instances when you wanted to just dwarf yourself when you were younger?
Many, Mohua. It's so much easier to do that, let me tell you. It's difficult to be me. My life looks charmed and I'm grateful to the universe that, I have this life. But it's difficult to be me. I have to stand up for myself, what I believe in, my family. I mean, my husband can't even make a roti hot, but he's bichara, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm a, I'm an alpha mother, alpha wife, alpha female, alpha everything. But he's bichara, why? Many times when I do a show and I come off, people tell him, "I- just control her, yaar. Control me? Control me, really? You know, so I wag my imaginary tail at him and I go woof woof. But I feel after some time, they very insidiously telling me that he's not a man enough. "Eh, yaar, usko, you let her do all this, you let her say all this." So all the easygoingness sometimes goes tough. We have to talk it over. We've been together since we're 13 years old, and that's a huge thing. So, we understand each other very well. We sometimes he completes my statements, what is in my head, and that's scary. But it's tough. It's tough to be me. It's like I'm a quintessential ball chewer. That is why my son is gay. You don't understand. Because I'm so uh, outspoken and I'm so tough and I'm such a ball chewer. Therefore, my son is gay. Are send him to play football, yeah, with me. Send him to play, fly kites. That's how they gay shamed me. I want to tell all those gay children out there, you think it's tough? I said, your parents maybe are really shaking in their pants because it's very tough for them. Because, especially the mothers, because you are wrong. Baby, you did something wrong. You know, your son, your puttar is gay. He's the H word that they use in India. Oh my God. तुम्हारा लाड प्यार ने बिगाड़ा है तुमको ऐसे इसको जनानी बना के ऑल दीज वर्ड्स दैट दे यूज मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता ईव एंसलर सेड men are so vulnerable that their tears have hardened into bullets. That's why they shoot you rather than talk to you.
What is it that you would like to tell mothers who are equally in this entire journey of their children coming out? And some of the tips that you would like to give them, because of course the child also goes through a lot of highs and lows, and it may not be easy for an ill-informed mother. And we have so many listeners across who may not have the courage to open up and speak and may not be articulate, may not have all the privileges that you have had. What would you like to share with them?
एक तो आई वांट टू टेल द मदर्स तुमने उसको जन्म दिया है नाउ वॉट एवर दे से 50-50% यू हैव गिवन दैट ब्लड द बोन्स द डीएनए everything 9 frigging months you have carried that child जब बाप कुछ करता है ना they say oh he's so hands on mothers don't have a choice we are 100% hands on all the time you know you have given birth to another human being you have which is torn out of your body and come and you forget about it and ready to have a second one. You know your child the best. Be compassionate. Suno uska baat. Listen to them. Let the world go to hell. Let the baap go to hell. Let everybody else go to hell. You take your child and you be your child's solace. You be your child's anchor. You know, माँ लोग ऐसे होते हैं that when they go to commit suicide अपने दोनों बच्चों को साथ में लेके they jump into the thing. How many times have you heard that? So I'm saying in a situation when you find your child is different, is what is considered different, support them, be with them, just love them. I know I loved mine. I loved mine with all my heart and soul. And there's nothing that can take that place. He's so confident because he knows he's loved. He says ma, he doesn't have to say mama. You know, there's so many things in my life which I happily gave a second seat for. Everybody says, oh, Ruby, you should be in Bombay. You should do this. Arey, मैं Bombay से इधर भाग के आई हूँ. I've come here, you know. Be with them. Just love them because love is all you need. It sounds trite, but loving means supporting, being with them, seeing them, listening to them, and give them the courage of conviction. If you are Bahadur, then your child also learns to be Bahadur, you know. And you can only be Bahadur when you love unconditionally.
Thank you for being in today's episode.
Thank
It was
you.
wonderful, Ruby.
Thank you so much.
I'd never imagined that I would be sitting across and seeing tears, welling up in your eyes when we spoke. I am really glad that you agreed to come for today's podcast. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I just want to tell you, I said like you found it really amazing that somebody like me would have tears welling up in her eyes. That is the impression we have of other people. You know, we put them in certain category. Oh, yeah, this one talks very well. This one, she must be strong. He must. No, but there's a certain vulnerability in everybody. And, reaching out, I wrote that in my column. Reaching out with integrity is the best way.
We end the episode with Ruby leaving the words, reaching out with integrity is the best way. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
You're beautiful.
Thank you. You made my day.
To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course on all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are The Mohua Show, where we talk ईमानदारी से.